Working the late shift at Wendy's in Las Vegas wasn't exactly thrilling, but it paid the bills. I had been at the job for a few months now, flipping burgers, cleaning up messes, and dealing with the occasional drunk customers stumbling in past midnight. It was a routine I had gotten used to until Sarah arrived. She showed up one night right before my shift started. I was in the back, grabbing my apron when she walked in. She had dark hair pulled into a ponytail, pale skin, and a soft voice that barely carried over the sound of the fryer. "Hey, I'm Sarah," she said with a small smile. "I just started tonight." I had no idea we were getting a new hire, but I wasn't exactly in charge of those decisions. Maybe the manager, Jason, had forgotten to mention it. "Cool. I'm Ethan," I replied, tossing her a nod. "Welcome to the night shift. It's pretty quiet, but the drive-thru gets busy sometimes." She seemed nice enough, though there was something a little off. She didn't talk much, and she never touched anything directly. If she picked up a tray, she used a napkin. If she had to push open a door, she did it with her elbow. At first, I thought maybe she just had a thing about germs. The first few hours passed without much happening. It was a slow night, the kind where time dragged. I caught Sarah staring at the menu board, her eyes following the flickering lights. When she noticed me looking, she quickly turned away. At one point, I asked her if she wanted to take a break. "No," she said quickly. "I don't need breaks." That was weird, but I let it slide. Some people like to power through their shifts. Then around 12:12 a.m., something strange happened. A man walked in wearing a hoodie pulled low over his face. He stood near the counter, not saying a word. I glanced at Sarah. "Want to take this one?" I asked. She didn't move, didn't blink. I frowned and turned back to the customer. Hey, what can I get you?" No response. I glanced at Sarah again, expecting her to be looking at him too. But she wasn't. She was staring at me. And that's when I noticed the cold creeping over me, like the temperature in the room had dropped. By the time I turned back, the man was gone. No footsteps, no sound, just gone. I let out a slow breath. Maybe I was just tired. Working nights messed with your mind sometimes. Jason, our manager, came out from the office a few minutes later. "How's the new girl doing?" he asked, wiping his hands on a rag. "She's all right," I said, nodding toward Sarah. She was wiping down a tray, using another napkin, of course. Jason frowned. "Who?" I chuckled. "Sarah. You hired her, right?" His expression darkened. "Ethan, we didn't hire anyone new." I laughed, waiting for him to say he was joking, but he didn't. "No, seriously," I said, my voice unsteady. "She's right there." I turned toward the counter. Sarah was gone. My stomach twisted. I looked around. Nowhere. Not behind the register, not near the fryer. Just gone. Jason gave me a strange look. "You good, man?" I didn't answer. I just nodded, trying to shake the feeling crawling up my spine. The rest of the shift dragged on, and I couldn't shake the unease gnawing at me. When I finally clocked out, I lingered by the security room, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. I had to check the cameras. I rewound the footage to when Sarah had first walked in. Nothing. I sped forward, past the part where she was wiping down trays, past when I spoke to her. Still nothing. I felt my heartbeat in my ears. This wasn't right. I had seen her, talked to her. Then I saw myself on the screen, standing at the counter, talking to no one. The next night I tried to convince myself it was just a glitch, that maybe the cameras had malfunctioned. But when I walked into the kitchen, I stopped cold. Sarah was there. "Hey," she said, smiling slightly. "You look like you've seen a ghost." I swallowed hard. "You weren't here last night." She tilted her head. Of course I was. I didn't know what to say. I wanted to call Jason, to prove I wasn't losing my mind. But my phone suddenly felt like it weighed 100 pounds. I turned back toward Sarah. She was staring at me now, her dark eyes unblinking. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, she said, You shouldn't have checked the cameras. I tried to avoid her for the rest of the shift. I kept my distance, sticking near the fry station, avoiding eye contact. But as the hours dragged on, curiosity got the better of me. I found myself near the storage room, where Jason was sorting inventory. "Hey," I said, "do you know if anything weird happened here?" Jason sighed, rubbing his temples. "Why?" "Just curious." He hesitated, then said, "There was a girl. Years ago. She worked the night shift, just like you. One night she went missing." My throat went dry. "What happened?" Jason shook his head. "They never found her. Just her uniform, right where she had been standing." The next night, I didn't want to go in, but something told me I had to. I walked into Wendy's at exactly 12:12 a.m. Sarah was there, waiting. "I know what happened to you," I said. She smiled. "Do you?" The lights flickered. The temperature dropped. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, she said, "You're next." I ran. I didn't care if Jason thought I had lost it. I didn't care if I got fired. I just ran. The last thing I saw as I pushed open the door was Sarah, standing behind the counter, her expression unreadable. The last thing I heard was my own voice, playing back over the intercom. "You're next." Working the night shift at Wendy's in Houston wasn't exciting, but it had its moments. I had been here long enough to know the usual crowd: truck drivers grabbing a quick meal, tired workers stopping by after their shift, and the occasional drunk customer trying to order breakfast at 2 a.m. It was predictable, and I liked it that way. That night started like any other. The kitchen hummed with the sound of the fryer, and the register screen flickered with new orders. I wiped the counter absent-mindedly, waiting for something, anything, to break the silence. It was 3:30 a.m., and only a few cars passed outside. The night was quiet. Mason, my co-worker, was in the back, probably sneaking bites of leftover fries. I didn't mind. As long as he helped when the drive-thru got busy, I wasn't going to rat him out. Then the door chime rang. I looked up. A man stood at the register. Something about him was off. His clothes were normal, dark jeans and a gray hoodie pulled low over his head. But when I tried to focus on his face, my stomach twisted. It was wrong. I blinked, thinking maybe my tired eyes were playing tricks on me. But when I looked again, my breath caught in my throat. He had no face, no eyes, no nose, no mouth. Just smooth, pale skin where his features should be. I felt my body freeze. My fingers gripped the counter, knuckles turning white. The restaurant suddenly felt colder, like someone had opened a freezer door behind me. I swallowed hard and forced myself to speak. Can I take your order?" The man didn't move. He didn't shift his weight or clear his throat. He just stood there, his featureless face pointed straight at me. A heavy silence stretched between us. The longer I stared, the more my mind screamed at me to run. Then I blinked, and he was gone. My heart slammed against my ribs as I spun around. My brain tried to make sense of what had just happened, but nothing about it made sense. 1 second he was there, the next gone. I forced myself to take a deep breath. Maybe I had imagined it. Maybe I was just tired. Then I felt it, a breath against my ear. "You took too long." The voice was a whisper, soft and slow, but it felt like ice against my skin. I stumbled forward, knocking into the register. My hands trembled as I turned. He was behind me. My vision blurred as I backed away. My legs felt weak, but I forced myself to move. "Mason!" My voice cracked as I called out. No answer. I ran to the kitchen, my heart pounding so hard it echoed in my ears. Mason was there, leaning against the counter, scrolling through his phone. I grabbed his shoulder. "Did you see that guy?" He raised an eyebrow. "What guy?" "The guy at the register. He had no face. He was just standing there, and then he disappeared. Mason frowned. Dude, no one's here, it's just us. I turned, expecting to see the faceless man standing in the doorway, but the front of the restaurant was empty. The air still felt heavy, like something had been there, but now it was gone. At least for now. I couldn't shake the feeling. The man was there. I knew it. I had seen him. I needed proof. Mason followed me as I rushed to the security room. The old monitor flickered as I rewound the footage. My fingers hovered over the mouse as I played back the last few minutes. The door chimed. I watched myself look up. I saw the moment my body went stiff, the second my knuckles turned white against the counter. But there was no one there. No man. No hoodie. Just me, talking to nothing. Mason let out a low whistle. Dude, you okay? I shook my head. I saw him. I swear I saw him. Mason shifted uneasily. Maybe you just need some sleep. I wanted to believe that, but deep down I knew the truth. I hadn't imagined it. The rest of the shift dragged on. Every shadow felt like it was watching me. Every flicker of the light made my pulse jump. Mason tried to joke about it, but even he looked uneasy. At 4 a.m., I stepped outside for some air. The parking lot was empty except for my car and Mason's bike. The city lights glowed in the distance, but everything around the restaurant felt too quiet. Then I saw it, a shape standing near the dumpster. It was him, the faceless man. He didn't move. He didn't shift. He just stood there, his smooth, featureless face pointed right at me. I stumbled backward, my breath coming in short gasps. My hand flew to my pocket, gripping my phone, but when I blinked, he was gone. I couldn't take it anymore. I needed answers. That morning after my shift, I found Jason, the store manager. He was sitting in his office, half asleep with his coffee. Jason, I said, closing the door behind me. Has anything weird ever happened here? He looked at me like I had asked if Wendy secretly served pizza. Weird? Like people seeing things, a man with no face. Jason's face changed. It was small, but I saw it. The slight tensing of his jaw. The way his fingers curled around his coffee cup. He let out a slow breath. Where did you see him? My stomach twisted. So, you know. Jason rubbed his eyes. His name was Daniel. He used to work here. Night shift. One night he just disappeared. I stared at him. They never found him? Jason shook his head. No body. No signs of where he went. Just gone. I swallowed hard. He always comes back around this time of year, Jason muttered. Looking for someone to take his place. I barely slept that day. My body felt drained, but every time I closed my eyes, I saw him. I almost didn't go back to work. But something told me if I didn't, he would come looking for me anyway. At 3:30 a.m., the door chimed. I looked up. He was back. This time he wasn't at the register. He was standing behind the counter, right where I was. You took too long, he whispered. I didn't run. I knew it wouldn't matter. The room grew cold. The lights flickered. The sound of the fryer died out. He reached out. I squeezed my eyes shut. Then, silence. When I opened my eyes, the restaurant was empty. The clock read 3:31 a.m. It was over. Or at least I thought it was. Until I saw my reflection in the register screen and realized I had no face. Working at Wendy's during the late shift wasn't exactly my dream job, but it paid the bills. I had been at this Miami location for a few months now, and the nights were usually quiet, except for the occasional drunk customer or a group of teenagers hanging around the parking lot. That night I was covering the register while my coworker Mark handled the kitchen. It was 10:40 p.m., almost closing time, and I was just waiting for the last few customers to leave. The restaurant was mostly empty, just one guy in the corner eating his fries and scrolling on his phone. Then the door opened. A cold breeze swept in as an old woman shuffled inside. She wore a long, faded dress, and her gray hair was pulled back in a loose bun. Her hands trembled slightly as she walked toward the counter. I put on my best customer service smile. "Good evening, ma'am. What can I get for you?" She stared at the menu for a long moment, then whispered, "A burger. Just a simple burger." I nodded and punched in the order. "Would you like anything else with that?" She shook her head slowly, her lips barely moving. "Number, that's all." Something about her voice sent a strange feeling through me. It was quiet but filled with something else, something heavy, like sadness or regret. I turned to grab her food, but when I glanced back at her, she was staring at me, her eyes dark and distant. "I have unfinished business," she muttered under her breath. I froze. "Sorry, what was that?" She didn't answer. I handed her the burger, expecting her to take it and go, but she didn't. She just stood there, holding the wrapped sandwich in her hands like it was something precious. "Are you okay?" I asked hesitantly. Her eyes lifted to meet mine. "It's been so long," she whispered. "So long since I last tasted one." I forced a chuckle, trying to lighten the mood. "Well, Wendy's does make a pretty good burger." She didn't laugh. Instead, she carefully unwrapped the sandwich, her frail fingers shaking. She brought it up to her lips, but before she could take a bite, she stopped. She just stood there, holding it. The seconds stretched. Mark peeked his head from the kitchen. "Everything good out there?" I nodded slowly, though something felt wrong. The air around the woman seemed heavier now, like the room itself had become smaller. "Do you need a seat, ma'am?" I asked. She didn't answer. The guy in the corner, the one eating fries, shifted uncomfortably in his chair. I could tell he had noticed her too. The woman suddenly sighed, her shoulders sinking. "I thought this would be enough," she said softly. "Enough for what?" I asked. She looked up at me with sad, tired eyes. "To let go." The tension in the room felt thick, pressing down on me. My hands felt clammy and I didn't know why. The woman took a slow breath and without another word turned toward the door. She took one step, then another. Then she was gone. Not out the door, not into the parking lot. She just disappeared. 1 second she was there, and the next, nothing. I blinked hard, my brain refusing to believe what I had just seen. I turned to Mark, expecting him to say something, to confirm that I hadn't lost my mind. But his face was pale. His eyes were wide. "Dude," he whispered. "Where did she go?" The guy in the corner stood up abruptly, knocking his chair over. Nope. I'm out of here." He grabbed his fries and rushed toward the exit without looking back. Mark and I just stood there staring at the empty space where the woman had been. Neither of us spoke. I barely slept that night. I kept replaying what had happened in my head, searching for an explanation. But there wasn't one. People don't just vanish. The next morning I went back to work, hoping daylight would make things feel normal again. It didn't. As I walked behind the counter, I noticed something strange on the floor. A piece of paper yellowed with age, half hidden beneath the register. I picked it up and unfolded it. It was an old newspaper article, and on the front page, there was a photo of the woman. My blood ran cold. The headline read, "Woman dies after choking at local Wendy's." I felt the floor tilt beneath me. I scanned the article, my hands shaking. The woman's name was Margaret Evans. She had come to this Wendy's years ago, ordered a burger, and choked before anyone could help her. She had died, right here. I couldn't focus for the rest of my shift. I kept looking toward the door, half expecting her to come back. What had she meant by unfinished business? Was she trying to eat one last meal? Was she stuck here replaying her last moments over and over? I wanted to believe it was over, that she had finally moved on. But deep down, I knew the truth. She wasn't gone. That night at exactly 10:40 p.m. the door chimed. I didn't want to look up. I already knew who it was. Margaret stood at the counter, her faded dress swaying slightly, her hands trembling just like before. She ordered a burger, just like before. I watched, my heart pounding as she unwrapped it, raised it to her lips, and stopped. She sighed, her expression heavy with sorrow. "Still not enough," she murmured. Then she was gone. Again. I knew then that she wasn't going to leave. Not tonight. Not ever. She would keep coming back, night after night, trying to finish the meal she never got to eat. She was trapped in a loop, reliving her final moments over and over. And we, Mark, me, and anyone else working the night shift, would have to watch. Forever. Working the night shift at Wendy's in San Francisco wasn't always exciting, but it had its moments. Most nights I'd spend hours flipping burgers, cleaning trays, and watching the clock tick toward closing time. Midnight was usually slow, just a few late-night customers grabbing food after work or a night out. That night I was at the register, half distracted, when a mobile order popped up on the screen. The name read, Mary Simmons. The order was simple, a cheeseburger, fries, and a small vanilla frosty. Nothing unusual. I called back to my coworker Ben, who was manning the fry station. "Hey, we got a mobile order. You see anyone pull up?" Ben glanced out the window, shook his head, and dropped fresh fries into the oil. "Nah, probably on the way." I nodded and started prepping the order. We set it on the counter for pickup and waited. A few cars passed, but no one came inside. The drive-thru was empty. 10 minutes passed, then 20. Ben leaned on the counter, yawning. "You sure they're coming?" I checked my phone. 12:06 a.m. The same time the order had come in. I frowned, something about the number nagging at me. "Maybe they changed their mind," I muttered. I reached to cancel the order but hesitated. Something didn't feel right. An hour later, the food was still sitting there, untouched. I had almost forgotten about it when Mark, our manager, walked in from the back office. "What's up with the bag?" he asked, nodding toward the counter. "Mobile order," I said, but no one picked it up. Mark stepped closer, reading the name on the receipt. His expression shifted. "Mary Simmons?" His voice was quiet. I nodded. "Yeah. Why?" Mark didn't answer right away. He just stared at the name, his fingers twitching slightly against the counter. "That order," he swallowed. "It's been showing up for years." I let out a short laugh, expecting him to joke, but he wasn't laughing. "What do you mean?" I asked. Mark sighed, rubbing his temples. "Every Friday at exactly 12:06 a.m. this same order comes in, same name, same food." I felt my stomach tighten. "And no one ever picks it up?" He shook his head. "Not once." I didn't like the way Mark was looking at the bag, like it was something cursed. "Maybe it's a glitch," I suggested. "Like someone placed the order a long time ago and it just keeps popping up?" Mark sighed. "That's what I thought too, until I checked the system." He walked over to the computer and pulled up the order history. My breath hitched as he scrolled back. Every Friday, 12:06 a.m., the same order, the same name. Ben, who had been listening, frowned. "That's not normal, right?" Mark didn't answer. Instead, he opened a drawer beneath the counter and pulled out something small and crumpled, a faded receipt. My hands felt cold as I took it. The ink was smudged, but I could still read the date. October 12th, 2003, and beneath it, the same name, Mary Simmons. I exhaled slowly, trying to process it. So this has been happening for, what, 20 years? Mark nodded. Since before I started working here. I felt a weight settle in my chest. "Who is she?" Mark hesitated before speaking. She was a customer, used to come here every Friday. One night she placed an order, but never picked it up. A bad feeling curled in my gut. Why? Mark's voice was lower now. She died, in a car crash, right outside the restaurant. I swallowed. Ben shifted uncomfortably. So what? You're saying her ghost is ordering food? Mark didn't answer, but he didn't deny it either. I turned to the front window. The street outside was quiet, lit only by the flickering glow of the Wendy sign. Was she still out there? I don't know why I did it, but I grabbed the receipt in my phone. Something inside me told me to check. I typed Mary Simmons car crash San Francisco into the search bar. My blood went cold. There it was. An old newspaper article. A woman named Mary Simmons had died in a crash on October 12, 2003, just after midnight. She had been on her way to pick up food from Wendy's when a drunk driver ran a red light. My hands felt numb as I read it. Ben peered over my shoulder. Dude, that's messed up. I stared at the article, my heart pounding. Was she trying to finish what she couldn't? Was she still waiting? Without thinking, I picked up the phone and dialed the number listed on the mobile order. The line rang once, twice. Then someone answered. I didn't hear a voice, just breathing. Slow, faint. I froze. Then, a whisper. I'm still waiting. I dropped the phone. Ben swore under his breath. Tell me that was a prank call. I couldn't answer. My mind was racing, trying to find logic in something that had none. The clock on the register blinked. 12:06 a.m. Then, outside, headlights. A car rolled up to the parking lot. Mark, Ben, and I all turned, staring as the engine cut off. No one got out. I could barely breathe. What do we do? Mark's voice was quiet. Take the bag outside. My body felt stiff as I grabbed the untouched order. My feet moved on their own as I pushed open the door and stepped into the cold night air. The car was old, dusty, like it had been sitting for years. I approached slowly, every nerve in my body screaming at me to stop. Then the driver's window rolled down. The seat was empty. I placed the bag on the hood. The second I let go, the headlights flickered. Then the car vanished. The lot was empty. The bag was gone. I turned and rushed back inside, my breath coming in short gasps. Mark and Ben stared at me, their faces pale. Ben swallowed. Did it work? I didn't know. I checked the register. The name Mary Simmons was gone. The clock ticked past 12:07 a.m. For the first time in 20 years, the order had been picked up. Working the night shift at Wendy's in Detroit wasn't exactly thrilling, but I had gotten used to it. The store was open 24 hours, and after midnight, the place was mostly empty, except for the occasional late-night customers looking for burgers and fries. My co-worker, Dave, was an older guy who had been working here for years. He mostly stayed in the back, handling the kitchen while I took care of the front. That night, it was just the two of us. The clock on the register read 1:17 a.m. when the door swung open. A man walked in, wearing a faded Wendy's uniform that looked at least a decade old. His shirt was wrinkled, and his pants were covered in stains. His hair was messy, and his face was covered in soot, like he had just walked through a fire. He stepped up to the counter, his dull eyes staring right at me. "I'm here for a job," he said in a low, raspy voice. I hesitated, glancing at Dave, who had just walked out from the back. The moment Dave saw the man, his face turned white. The man wore a name tag. It was scratched and burned, but I could still read it. Jack. I forced a smile, trying to ignore the strange feeling crawling up my spine. Let me check with my manager," I said, pretending to look at the schedule. "Are you sure you applied here?" Jack didn't blink. "I used to work here." Dave took a slow step back, his hands shaking. "Johnny, come here for a second," he mumbled. I stepped away from the register, keeping an eye on Jack as I followed Dave into the kitchen. "Who is that guy?" I whispered. Dave's breathing was uneven. He's dead." I stared at him. "What?" Dave wiped his forehead, his face pale with sweat. "Jack worked here 10 years ago. There was a fire in the kitchen. He didn't make it." My stomach twisted. "That's not possible. He's standing right there." Dave grabbed my arm, his grip tight. "Look at his uniform. It's the old design. We stopped using that years ago." I swallowed hard, glancing back toward the counter. Jack was still there, waiting. I took a deep breath and stepped back to the counter. "So, you said you used to work here?" I asked, my voice unsteady. Jack nodded slowly. "Yes, a long time ago." I forced a smile. "Do you have any paperwork? A resume?" Jack's lips twitched slightly. "I don't need one." The words sent a chill through me. His voice was so flat, so lifeless. I looked down at the register, pretending to check something just to avoid his stare. Then I smelled it. Smoke. I looked around, but nothing was burning. The fryers were off. The kitchen was clean. There was no reason for the smell. Jack tilted his head. "You smell that?" I nodded slowly. "That's how it started," he whispered. I felt a lump in my throat. "How what started?" He leaned in, his burnt name tag glinting under the dim light. "The fire." I took a step back, my heart pounding. "Dave," I called over my shoulder. "Can you come here?" No answer. I turned my head slightly. Dave was gone. Jack was still standing there, staring at me. The smell of smoke was getting stronger, and for a moment I swore I could hear crackling flames. Then Jack smiled. It was the first time he had shown any expression, but it wasn't comforting. It was hollow, like he was remembering something terrible. "I was right here," he murmured. "When it happened." I swallowed hard. "When what happened?" Jack didn't answer. Instead, he turned slowly and walked toward the kitchen. I didn't want to follow him. Every part of my brain was screaming at me to stay put. But my feet moved on their own. When I stepped into the kitchen, Jack was gone, and the smoke smell was stronger than ever. I found Dave crouched in the corner of the storage room, his hands gripping his head. "Dave!" I ran to him. "What's going on?" He looked up at me, his eyes red. "He's back." "Who? Jack?" Dave nodded slowly. "I was here when it happened, Johnny. The fire started in the kitchen right where he was working. The flames spread fast, too fast. We tried to get him out, but the ceiling collapsed." I felt my stomach drop. Why didn't I ever hear about this? Dave let out a shaky breath. "They covered it up. The company didn't want bad press, so they renovated, repainted, and pretended it never happened." I looked back toward the empty kitchen. Jack had come back. But why? I stepped out of the storage room, my eyes scanning the kitchen. The smoke was thick now, making my eyes water. But there was no fire. Then I saw it. A single word appearing on the steel counter as if written by an invisible hand. "Remember." I turned to Dave. "What does he want?" Dave's face was pale. "He wants the truth." I grabbed my phone, my fingers shaking as I typed Wendy's kitchen fire Detroit into the search bar. Nothing. No reports, no articles, no mention of Jack. It was like he had never existed. The smoke thickened. I could barely see. Then a voice, Jack's voice, whispered through the air. "I never left." The next thing I knew, I was outside. The smoke was gone. The air was cold. Dave stood beside me, staring at the restaurant. The windows were dark. The inside was silent. "What happened?" I asked. Dave shook his head. "I don't know, but I don't think he's coming back." I turned back to the restaurant. For the first time in years, it felt different, like something had finally been set free. Or maybe, just maybe, Jack was still waiting.